What's Netanyahu's real endgame with attacking Iran? Iran, for its part, is on the back foot militarily, after Israel destroyed much of its air defense infrastructure last October, killed numerous senior leaders of its proxies Hezbollah and Hamas, and degraded Hezbollah's military capabilities in a devastating but highly effective incursion into Lebanon last year. That defeat contributed to the shocking success of Syrian rebels at finally toppling Iranian client Bashar al-Assad's regime in December. With its internal defenses and regional proxies weakened, Iran was unable to prevent Israel's unprecedented offensive and may be limited in its ability to retaliate, especially with Israel receiving air defense support from the U.S. and neighboring countries such as Jordan. Iran's current weakness was likely part of what prompted Israel to act now, though the planning for the ongoing offensive took months or years. The strikes also came in the midst of President Donald Trump's attempts to negotiate a new agreement with Iran to curtail its nuclear program. A sixth round of talks had been set to take place in Oman on Sunday, on the heels of a report from the International Atomic Energy Agency on Thursday that censured Iran for violating its non-proliferation obligations and a provocative announcement by Iran that it was opening a third nuclear enrichment facility. Netanyahu has always opposed making deals with Iran over its nuclear program, believing the Iranian regime cannot be trusted to uphold any agreement it makes or be honest about its intentions and actions. The negotiations have been deadlocked over U.S. demands that Iran not enrich any uranium at all, despite this right being guaranteed under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, so chances of an actual deal may have been slim, but any chance was too much for Netanyahu. Friday's operation pretty much kiboshes any potential deal. It bears emphasizing that the current crisis is the fruit of what history may judge as Trump's greatest foreign policy blunder, his first-term decision to tear up his predecessor, Barack Obama's painstakingly negotiated 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran. That deal wasn't perfect or necessarily a permanent solution. Yet contrary to Trump's claims that it was the worst deal in history and that he could very easily negotiate a much better one, it was working as a check on Iran's nuclear capabilities. He has not managed to make another one, and whatever deal he might make would likely end up being virtually identical to the one he trashed. Had that agreement remained in place and continued to function as intended, Iran would not have accelerated its uranium enrichment program to the point of being able to rapidly produce weapons-grade uranium. Its activities would be much reduced, limited to civilian uses, and monitored by international inspectors. Israel would have much less justification, if any, for striking Iran's nuclear facilities. Instead, since Trump pulled out of the deal in 2018, Iran's regime has had 7 years to position itself on the verge of a nuclear weapons breakout, figuring that if the U.S. won't keep its promises, why should they? The resumption of sanctions that had been lifted under the nuclear deal has inflicted a great deal of economic pain upon the Iranian people, but it has not driven them to rise up and overthrow the mullahs. As Iran hawks in Washington and Jerusalem have long fantasized, Netanyahu remains enthralled by that fantasy today, and his words and actions after Israel began its offensive have indicated that his ultimate hope for Operation Rising Lion is to foment regime change. In Tehran, in a video statement released on Friday night and addressed to the Iranian people, the Israeli PM cast the operation as clearing the path for you to achieve your freedom, and suggested that the regime was at its weakest and ripe for an uprising. Israel's fight is not against the Iranian people, he said. Our fight is against the murderous Islamic regime that oppresses and impoverishes you. Perhaps in his heart of hearts, Netanyahu loves the Iranian people and truly believes that he is doing all of this for their sake. And wouldn't it be great if the Iranians seized this opportunity to cast off their oppressive theocracy? The problem is that this notion of liberating a people by bombing or invading their country never works. It did not work in Afghanistan, Iraq, or Libya, and it is unlikely to work in a much larger and more politically sophisticated country like Iran. Many Iranians despise their government and would like to live in a freer, more democratic, more secular state, but that doesn't mean they'd welcome an invasion by any foreign power, especially Israel or the US, even if the goal of that invasion was to topple a regime they hate. Insofar as war tends to drive people to rally around the flag, Israel's military intervention may make the Iranians less likely to overthrow the regime. Not more. Nothing makes an unpopular government more popular faster than an attack by an external enemy. Make no mistake, this is a massive embarrassment for the Iranian regime, and perhaps the humiliation of being so dramatically blindsided by Israel could cost it enough legitimacy to make it vulnerable to an uprising. However, the Iranian people are also experiencing this crisis as a national humiliation, and anyone who tries to foment revolution at a time like this would be immediately suspected of doing the bidding of the Israelis and the Americans. After all, Netanyahu literally just asked them to The most troubling possibility is that Netanyahu fully intends for this escalation to spiral into a wider war, with Iran or its proxies drawing the U.S. into the conflict by attacking American military assets or killing U.S. citizens in Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister has been lobbying Washington for an all-out war of regime change in Iran for years, and now maybe has chance to force the issue. But with American forces, under the erratic leadership of Donald Trump and the Republican Party divided on the wisdom of foreign military adventures, the U.S. might not be eager to get involved. Without robust American backing, Israel could find itself even more internationally isolated, fighting a war on multiple fronts against a determined enemy it cannot decisively defeat. One way or another, the events of the coming days and weeks will shape Netanyahu's legacy and Israel's future, no less than Iran's. Israelis should hope their leaders know what they're getting themselves into, and so should we. The most troubling possibility is that Netanyahu fully intends for this escalation to spiral into a wider war, with Iran or its proxies drawing the U.S. into the conflict by attacking American military assets or killing U.S. citizens in Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister has been lobbying Washington for an all-out war of regime change in Iran for years, and now maybe has chance to force the issue. But with American forces, under the erratic leadership of Donald Trump and the Republican Party divided on the wisdom of foreign military adventures, the U.S. might not be eager to get involved. Without robust American backing, Israel could find itself even more internationally isolated, fighting a war on multiple fronts against a determined enemy it cannot decisively defeat. One way or another, the events of the coming days and weeks will shape Netanyahu's legacy and Israel's future, no less than Iran's. Israelis should hope their leaders know what they're getting themselves into, and so should we. Text prompting viewers to comment and subscribe. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more updates on this developing story.